Center 17 years ago. So it's a passion that you don't easily lose or leave. And just really my role today is to thank everybody who's worked so hard, everyone's given all their time free, and to welcome you warmly to the Science Centre. And I hope this is the start of many more interactions with this group and with this kind of work. So thank you very much, and I'm going to hand over to the next person. And also, I'm here the whole day, so please, if you want to talk about anything, I'm here.
Right. Thank you very much, Julie. Thank you. Guy, do you want to come up and just introduce the people in the panel who's going to be opening up for us this morning?
Hi, everybody. My name is Guy. I'm with an organization called Spapreset Go. And Spapreset Go is a global collective of citizens that have a simple change strategy. Stop, if there's harm, reset your thinking or your behavior, go implement the solution that works. So basically, we put together this hackathon, and it's an interesting hackathon because it's not just local, we call it local. So we're having a global element as well as the local element. So we're going to be hacking throughout the complex. There will be different hack groups, and we're going to have hack groups all over the world as well for these participating in these next 2 days. And then also for the next few months up till June, I'm hosting an event called OSCE Days in Cape Town, and it's also hosted other places around the world. And we're going to showcase what has come out of this hacking weekend and the months that follow. So basically, there's a small group of us that I'm going to introduce to talk about the hackathon and introduce their part in it. So basically, Julie, you've seen her, she's with the Science Center. And before I start, I just want to say that a big thank you to everybody who's helped put this together, because we did this on zero budget. So this is like an open source, an example of open source where people see the value in it and they all come together. So we bypass financial capital, go right to the human capital. So, so I'm going to speak for a few minutes, and then I'm going to invite Paul Carrie from UMAMA at the University of Stellenbosch to come up. He does research in urban metabolism, and it's kind of connected to what the big vision we're trying to achieve with this. And Louise Hateng is with the Suribi, the South African Renewable Energy Business Incubator. Currently involved in their master incubation class, and they're going to be looking at some of the hacks and seeing if they can support some of the people to move further to turn them into reality. And of course, we have Ian, he's our facilitator for the weekend. And who else have we got? I think George Gabriel, and he's going to be talking about how there's an emerging community around Cape Town of hackathons that he's going to help network together to make into a much larger effort. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about how this is the unique nature of this hackathon. It's really, like I said, it's an interesting pilot project because we're trying to help Cape Town solve this problem by mobilizing the global community. Also, we have Carrie here on the side here. If you notice, she's a graphic artist, and she's going to be kind of drawing out all the main ideas and capturing them on paper. So Kaylee's going to be doing that all throughout the day.
And then Deirdre.
Deirdre. Ian's going to introduce Deirdre. She's with the Institute for Future Research at University of Stellenbosch, and she's going to be coming on and talking in a few minutes. So basically, this is really a pilot project to see how we can mobilize a global community of innovators to solve local problems. So by using the internet, we can actually multiply our innovation capabilities. So instead of just the local innovators here in Cape Town, by using the internet, we're going to try to mobilize all these different innovators around the planet to come and help us. And so this is a really new kind of strategy we're trying called global cosmo-localization. So cosmo means the universe, and localization here locally. So the cosmo part is represented by the internet, using the internet to mobilize all these innovators to come up with designs that we can all use. And we're getting a lot of interest from all around the world, I think because there's a lot of water-stressed cities in the world. We have a group of universities from Colombia, Bogota, and those universities are participating. They told their network called LENS, 125 universities in that network to participate. So there's a lot of water-stressed cities, and by participating and helping Cape Town with its solutions, they're actually helping their own cities with their solutions. So this is a really cool... No sound? No. Hello? Test. Oh, okay. So, thank you. Feedback, that's important. Okay, so basically by helping Cape Town solve its problems, they're actually helping their own city solve their problems. Okay, so we kind of calling this a new acronym. You know, there's an acronym called MOOC. That's means Massive Open Online Courses. We're calling this MOOC-C, so Massive Open Online Citizens Collaboration. So this is really what this weekend's about, to test this model, and there's different university hacker spaces that are going to be participating throughout the succeeding months. So there's a group in Sweden, for instance, who's going to be coming on board and trying to do some software work as well. So I think that kind of gives us a good overview this weekend. So
Thanks.
thank you very much for coming.
You want to just go through your next slide quickly?
Okay. So yeah, this slide just shows, it's kind of integrating all the different elements of this water crisis. This is a slide from UCT showing the trends of the dam levels, this is the concept we're trying to pilot called Bend the Curve. And this is, of course, this is like anybody who's in climate change knows this kind of graph, where we have different kind of scenarios and how we can bend those curves by more aggressive action. And so I'm going to invite Paul Carrie to come up, because he knows more about this stuff than I do. He's with urban metabolism. So that's a graph of planetary boundaries, and this is a graph of urban planetary boundaries. And this is the organization in Sweden who's going to participate in helping us with mapping out how to use all this information to create a software program that can help citizens around the world to bend the curve. So Paul, can I invite you up?
Thanks very much. Hi everyone. My name is Paul Carrie. I'm part of the Urban Modeling and Metabolism Assessment Research Team, or UMAMA, at Stellenbosch University. And we're envisioning cities as mothers, nurturing, looking after their citizens. Women are also the people who tend to service the needs of the household, as well as the people who engage mostly in informal economy practices. So that's where we get our UMAMA. When Jin asked me to come and speak, it was really the thought of scale. He's used the term global. I think we've all heard the notion, think global, act local. So I just want to speak to, I suppose, some of the motivation behind that, which is really how we position ourselves in a move towards sustainability. And I think a lot of the big moves, especially with the Sustainable Development Goals, now have emerged to really inspire people and give people a global sense of what's going on. The planetary boundaries graph, which is up here, has quantified 9 environmental boundaries that we dare not cross for our own sake. We've already crossed a few of them, as the red imagery shows. But something I battle with is, well, what do I do about that? And what does that actually mean for a local space? So if you find, it's not a very clear one, but if you find freshwater use, we're very low. Am I not loud enough? Is this better?
Yeah.
Aha, okay. Freshwater use, globally we're not really depleting. I like my job. Exercise. Globally we're not really depleting freshwater resources. But it's marked there as something we need to look out for. And if you look at Cape Town's consumption on a global level, we look efficient, as do many African cities, especially with other resources. We look like we're efficient, whereas we know living here that perhaps the better word is deficient, especially given the current state of our water management systems. And so how do we translate these global agendas into local realities? And I think a thought with the global, again, sorry, I need to really just be. A thought with the global agendas is they're very inspiring. It gives us a sense of joint humanity, global mission, but they can also be misleading, as I've explained. Cape Town, what is Cape Town's contribution to global space, and what is the individual's contribution? I'll just look at that so I know where I'm So here we need to break up our goals into regional responsibility, so looking at management of entire watersheds, bioregions, and then coming down to local level, what is the city's responsibility in terms of being a water distributor, and then down to a household level. We've seen an amazing shift in how we manage water at the household, which has contributed to us coming down from, I think, 1.1 billion litres of water consumed in Cape Town a day to 0.5. We're not allowed to talk about success stories yet because we're still in crisis, but that is, swear word, massively amazing. That's huge. And that is due to lots of different actors around the city actually changing their behaviors, changing your relationship with water, changing the way you wash, the way you cook, the way you water a garden, and the way you view water. And so I wouldn't underestimate what the small actions can do on a large scale. And I think that's very much the notion of what the hackathon will achieve. And I think my closing comment is that we need some form of synthesis between scales, so that actions at different scales don't undermine the actions of each group. I think I had something much more inspiring written down, but I think that's a good way to close. Materially, globalization makes us very independent. You cannot take one action in one place and expect that it will only have impact there. So materially, we need to deglobalize, we need to localize, we need to come down to regional and local levels, but we have an amazing tool, which is the internet, which is the information age, ICTs, and we must make full use of that and globalize our communication efforts. And so in this sense, let's not underestimate what a collection of driven, communicative people can do. I think that's me.
Right, thank you, Paul.
All right. Thank you.
Hi everybody, my name is Elise Hutting and I'm the incubation manager at 0&vq. We're based in Atlantis, a very poor community, just 35 kilometers outside Cape Town. We are here to support the top 10 innovations coming through. We're very looking forward to that. And offering them an opportunity in our incubator, we focus on water, waste and energy. And finding local solutions for manufacturing and the reindustrialization of the green economy and in Cape Town specifically. So the top 10 innovations will receive opportunity to attend our masterclass and they will be able to get factory space, share our equipment, and we're really looking to help scale these businesses going forward. Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much, everybody. My name's Ian Patterson. I'm going to be your kind of facilitator come convener for the weekend. Just a couple of thoughts up front. Firstly, everybody has given their time and their energy and in fact has put a lot of their own commitment and resources into this process. And I think what has been absolutely amazing is that not one person that we've approached to come and help out or assist has not done so. And that's people like Mike at the back, who is a professional videographer, spending 2 days videoing this, making sure we stream it out. Clinton, who's been our techie, getting the Facebook Live kind of side coming through. Kaylee doing the brilliant graphic facilitation over there. And I think that that's really an amazing example of the kind of spirit of Cape Town. And we have 2 days of speakers who, again, are coming and they are here because they're passionate, because they care, because they're committed to this city and the future of this city. And I think that's really an amazing thing. And if we can harness that positive energy, then that's an important milestone in being able to move forward. We're not a bunch of crackpots. We're not a bunch of lunatic fringe people. A lot of us are scientists, are business people, people with full daytime jobs, and we really believe in this. And so thank you also for giving up your time over this weekend to be with us. And so I want to reflect a little bit on our purpose for being here. We want to work together collaboratively to develop and discover innovative solutions for Cape Town, for the Cape Town water crisis, and utilizing, as has been really stressed so far, both global and local wisdom, energy and passion. And so this is not an event in that we walk out of here and it's all over. We want to take the work that is done over this weekend, create certain streams of work, link people, connect people, and make things happen. So we're not just about talking, we would like to see concrete, definitive action coming out of this at the end of the day. So we would ask you also to register with us on the website, and Geen will write up all the details onto one of the charts for us, and really to just connect. You know, the whole idea of a hack is you join in at whatever level you can, for however long you can, to make a difference, and we would certainly invite you to do so. We believe that our work will actually support the thinking in other parts of the world that are afflicted with the same or similar challenges. You know, the message went out a couple of weeks ago that Cape Town was the first major city to confront this challenge. That's a little bit of an urban myth. You know, Sao Paulo in 2014, 2015 had a very, very significant crisis, very similar to where we are. And California is in the middle of a 9-year drought that has had very similar effects. And so we can't believe that we are the first, and we certainly know very profoundly that we're not going to be the last. And so what we hope is that the generosity of spirit of people around the world helping out in the Cape Town crisis will be respected and returned, the favor will be returned through the work that we do over here. So some of the outcomes, the two outcomes that we really want to achieve is, first of all, some kind of innovative interdisciplinary thinking and idea creation. We've got a very diverse community of people here. We believe we can contribute substantially to the design, the adoption, and the implementation of innovative solutions. We don't believe that this is a silver bullet, but we believe that this can be a mobilizing and a catalytic process. We believe that effective global design and collaboration, one of the key outcomes that we'd like to see, it leads to real, scalable, open source solutions that can be shared with the other cities. And so we want to make sure that that is a definite outcome and our product of what we do. You know, Benjamin Franklin said it, when the well is dry, we'll all know the worth of water. And I think we're all experiencing that right now. So just a couple of comments about the agenda. This is kind of our welcome to the hack, some of our perspectives on water and the crisis, and we're going to have our keynote speakers really talking about that. We've asked each keynote speaker to speak for about 20 minutes, and we're then going to have kind of an open forum immediately after that. What we're also going to do is Deirdre is going to talk a little bit before the keynote speakers, talking a little bit about causal layered analysis and how we go beneath the surface to really understand the dynamics of this crisis. And so we're going to hand out to everybody a couple of Postit Notes and a couple of cookies. And as you listen to the speakers and ideas cross your mind, we're going to ask you to start to populate the 4 areas of causal layered analysis. We might not get to level 4, but certainly level 1, level 2, and level 3. And then all the way through this day, we're going to break away and go deeper and really explore some of the underlying issues and understand how the context can inform our thinking, inform the thinking of all the people around the world who are hacking into this, and help us to really create learnings in a more concrete and holistic way. There are speakers. I'm not going to go through all the speakers on the program. You have the program with you. I think a great bunch of speakers. We also have Alderman Smith this morning from the City of Cape Town, also just talking a little bit very quickly about the Cape Town city response and where we are right at the moment. And I think, you know, there's been a lot of negative publicity around the city. I certainly believe that the city is doing an amazing job with very few resources and with lots of complexity in terms of different levels of government and responsibility, and so we'll touch on that in the beginning. There will be panels as per the program. Tomorrow we will also have community panels where we will have experts, including David Crombie, sitting in the front here, who is a water and sanitation engineer. really answering people's questions about the more mundane things, you know. So, can I use grey water in my toilets, and can I use water that's got fat in it? You know, what are the implications of desalination and of extracting water out of the aquifers, etc. And we also have the head of the City of Cape Town's disaster management team also answering questions about the city's response. During the course of today, the hacking will continue in a parallel stream, and we're also hoping that the specialists that are here with us today, and if you'd like to also register your speciality with us, that would be great. There will be questions and technical issues that the hack teams will be confronting, and we would like to be able to refer them to a specialist for some kind of support and some thinking as we go through this. And as I've said, causal aid analysis will be a hack stream. So we believe this is a crisitunity, and the great philosopher Homer Simpson kind of coined the term.
And did you know that the Chinese use the same word for crisis as they do for opportunity?
Yes, crisitunity. You're right.
So let's hopefully embrace the spirit of crisitunity as we move forward. So my background is I'm a strategist, I'm a strategy facilitator, I'm an organizational designer, I'm a transformation specialist who's worked across both the public and private sectors, including the transformation of SARS. And so my interest is really around how do we mobilize people to change behavior and to align behind a vision of the future that can make a difference in the lives of ordinary people in the world around us. I have no illusions that this event and this hackathon is going to be any kind of silver bullet. It's not going to solve the crisis overnight, but we hope it will identify a range of potential solutions where we can address different parts of the crisis, inspire conversation, and really create a more holistic process going forward. One of the concerns that we have with the Day Zero campaign, and we think it's very necessary in terms of catching people's attention, but we also don't want to get into the situation where once Day Zero is passed, everybody simply goes back to what they've normally done. And this is one of the challenges that we have with this crisis, because the very nature of a crisis means that people plan in the short term. And then once the crisis is over, we forget about planning for the long term again because the crisis is over. And so how do we create the right kind of both short-term and long-term thinking and planning around these kind of issues? So can we catalyze the fragmented efforts that are currently undergoing and create an aligned Cape Town system, Western Cape system, global system that addresses these issues holistically? So part of what we're going through here with the internet connections is a little bit of an experiment. We want to understand, we want to collaborate, we want to learn, we want to identify meaningful areas, initiate action, but we don't believe that we're waving a magic wand. I think one of the challenges is that as citizens, often we look to government for solutions. Government, by its very nature, is not going to be providing the solutions to this process. We've got to own them, we've got to mobilize, we've got to do something about it. This is our city, we care about it, we live in it, we've grown up in it, we want our children to grow up in it, and if so, we've actually got to put our effort into making a difference as we move forward. This is not necessarily a water crisis, it's probably more of a cheap water crisis because there are expensive solutions we could put into place tomorrow, but are they affordable and are they the right solutions in terms of really driving an agenda that is positive for the future of the planet? It's not just a financial cost that we pay, it's really behavioral, it's really rethinking the way we live, the way we relate to our world. And so the real challenge, I believe, emanating out of this, and I'd like to ask as many of you as possible to join in with us, is to really mobilize the system in Cape Town to create a more holistic, sustainable strategy or sustainability strategy for the city that encompasses all different stakeholders, from business to ordinary citizens, to community organizations, to the agronomy sector, to the academics, so that we create the kind of strategy for the long term that government can actually align behind. The challenge with government is that many of the strategies in government are short term. Your strategy in government is 5 years, your annual performance plan is 3 years, and we all know that everybody focuses on the APP because that's what the Auditor General focuses on. But this is a 20 and 30 year problem. So how do we create that vision? How do we create that longer term strategy? And then the big question that really comes out of this is, how do we really, what are the processes of community mobilization and engagement that allow for more inclusive long-term solutions with sustainable energy, with the right kind of focus, right kind of resources behind them to bring about meaningful change. So we hope you're going to have a great time today. I'm going to ask Joel to come up quickly. We're going to just start off with a little bit of music, and then I'm going to ask Deirdre to talk about the causal aid analysis, and then we're going to get into the speakers. All right, could you give Joel a quick round of applause? Thank you. Yeah. Pitch it up. Yeah. We'll try to get that done. There's going to be a short one. So Joel is from Roots Grown Deep.
say the greatest struggle that we're facing is the struggle not to forget. We've been through the struggles of animalistic evolution. We've been through the struggles of enslavement, colonial oppression, racial revolutions, political revolutions. But where has the regeneration happened? We are a part of that. And the greatest struggle that we have actually is remembering who we are. So let's sing a song together. The song I learned in Kentucky. I am remembering who I am. I am remembering who I am. I am remembering. I am remembering. I am remembering who I am. I am remembering who I am. I am remembering. I am remembering. We are remembering who we are. We are remembering who we are. We are remembering. We are remembering. We are remembering who we are. We are remembering who we are. We are remembering. We are remembering. I am remembering who I am. I am remembering who I am. I am remembering. I am remembering. We are remembering who we are. We are remembering who we are. We are remembering. We are remembering. I am remembering who I am. I am remembering who I am. I am remembering. I am remembering. We are remembering who we are. We are remembering who we are. We are remembering. We are remembering. We are remembering who we are. We are remembering who we are. We are remembering. We are remembering. You feel that? So this is Gugu Duma playing Hadi and Darling Lizo, the Fire Mistress, and Sharo and Lizo together have a Water Flow Forums project they'll also be presenting musically Musically, socially, spiritually, we are called Roots Grown Deep as an ensemble. I just want to share a story and then one last song. So there are two farmers, two brothers, two ancestors. They've been living together since they were born for 40 years. Their father had passed down the land to them, and now these brothers took care of two plots. One brother, the elder, one brother, the younger, next to each other with a meadow in between their homes. So the elder brother and the younger brother living together, side by side, caretaking the two farms. And for 40 years they lived and they toiled and they worked together with no problem. They worked fluidly, seamlessly together until one day they had a quarrel. And this quarrel came between them in such a devastating way. It was like knives in their hearts. And for 1 week they did not speak. Second week, they did not speak. Silence. These brothers who had worked together for so long. Third week, they did not speak. They found themselves going outside of the lapa at their house, looking over the meadow and seeing the other brother standing there. But they did not speak. Then the younger brother decided to break the wall of the dam upstream and allow the water to flow. And then it was not just a meadow that was between them, but a river. One day, the elder brother is sleeping late into the morning and hears a knock at his door. He arises and goes and opens the door and sees a young man with a smile and a bright eye. He says, "Sir, I've come. I'm a carpenter." He was holding his toolkit. "I've come to find work. I feel that you might have work for me." The elder brother says, "Why, yes, I do have work for you. My younger brother has recently offended me, and now he's created a river between us, so I would like you to build me a 10-foot high fence between my house and his house." The carpenter looked at him, felt in his heart, and he said to the elder brother, "I think I hear what you are saying. Please show me where the wood is so I can make the fence posts and finish this project by the end of the day." So the elder brother directed the carpenter to the materials, and he went to town for the day. Meanwhile, the carpenter worked. The elder brother came home later that day from his duties in town, only to find that the carpenter had built a beautiful bridge over the river. And he found his younger brother had already walked from his house halfway across the bridge and was waiting for the elder brother to come and greet him. And the elder brother walked across the bridge and embraced his younger brother. And they cried and they laughed. And the carpenter then picked up his toolbox to leave. And the brother said, wait, we have more work for you. We have more work for you." And the carpenter turned and smiled and said, "Thank you very much, but I have more bridges to build." Can we bring let the water rise? Yep. So there's a song that's come up. We're just going to sing it. Maybe we can learn it now and we just sing it over the weekend, in the conclusion, the afternoon, and then the morning tomorrow. This is a word that's simple. Maybe we can get a rhythm. waters rise, change us for all time. Seek the will divine, all is intertwined. Let the waters rise, change us for all time. Seek the will divine, all is intertwined.
To come and just very briefly talk to you a little bit about causal-led analysis, and then we're going to use that as all of our speakers speak.
Hi, good morning everybody. Thank you for this time that you've taken out of your day. Thankfully I'm not going to be singing. My name is Deirdre Sampson. I am finally a master's student at the University of Stellenbosch Business School doing future studies. And my thesis that I'm writing is actually the future of organizations by 2030 in South Africa. And one of the methodologies we'll be using is causal-led analysis, which is what I'm going to take you through. I'm affiliated to the International Futures Institute in Stellenbosch. And I'm speaking on behalf of them today. And then my day job is I'm a marketing ideation manager within innovation at Distel. So that's my job I do during the day. And today I'm really going to be speaking to you about a technique, and it is just one of the techniques within future studies, and it's looking at what causal-led analysis is. And it really is about understanding the past, and it's very, very interesting in the really what's coming up this morning. what Paul and what Joel have said about paradigms, about traditions, about cultures, because this is all wrapped up in causal-aid analysis. So it's less about predicting what the future is, but more about saying, what are the possibilities? If we understand all the layers that sit below, what is it and how can we solve these? So causal-aid analysis is exactly like the iceberg. The part at the top, that is what you see. This is what you hear, it's everything in the media, it's what people say, it's what people think, and it's what we experience. Now, if we had to go and do problem solving, looking for solutions, very, very, I have to find a very good presenter person there. Back here. They've already given me a mic, which I don't like. But you need to go down below the surface to really, really uncover what is sitting below the iceberg. And you can see from this iceberg, some are going to be easy to uncover, others have got nooks and crannies, there's darkness, you really, really have to delve in. And that is what causal-aid analysis is. It has 4 layers, and it's all about going all into those layers to understand exactly what is going on. Right at the top, it's what we call litany. That is really exactly what I said. What is being said in the media? Is it true? Is it not? Now, if we were Trump, we would say it's fake news. But that could be politically driven. It could be a view someone has. So it's really what is being said out there. The second one is when we start, because those are facts. So what do people see? Second one is very much systemic. So that is still facts, but it's what's happening in technology, in economics, the social environment, politics, but it's very still fact-driven. But then you start going down to worldview. So what are the worldviews out there about water shortage? What is happening? So that is when you start digging down into what are the emotions. What is actually being said? What are people feeling? And the last one is myths and metaphors, and that comes back to the culture. What are intergenerational cultures? How are people experiencing things? And that is really, and I'm really giving you a snapshot. And as Ian said, the reason I'm giving you a snapshot is really as the speakers are speaking, we'd really like you to make notes on things they say, and we will start to build these 4 levels. And this is just a start, and as we progress through this project, we'll be able to build solutions that answer the various problems that we are facing. Just to go into the benefits, it's really about integrating multiple perspectives. So what sometimes happens, especially in the corporate world, we sit together and we get all the perspectives and we think, great, we're going to go and solve the problem. But we actually have to go out there to say, who is the actual consumer? Who is the actual customer out there? And it's the people, it's the everyday people, it's the people in the houses, it's the people living in the informal settlements. It is everybody out there. And it goes against conventional framing of issues. So you have to look below the surface to reframe how you say what are the problems. And then obviously depth of analysis allows for longer term planning. So it's not reactive, it's very much proactive. It allows you to plan for the future and what is happening. And you know the saying, shape the future before it shapes you. So it's about saying, what are the possible ways that this could play out? And if it is that, how can we make sure that we shape it going along with it? It's about creating possibilities and not just goals. So what are the possible futures that we can create as a community? And then it's really about transformation, and is a better world for everybody. If you think of some of the things that are happening out there, what people are wanting to do to solve the water crisis, but what are the unintended consequences? What is it on sustainability? How is it affecting people in their homes? So it's about saying, how can we transform, not just for us, but for the generations that follow? And then I'm just going to give you a very quick case study, which I found an article in the San Francisco Chronicle, October 2001, where there was an article written and it said, why bombings and warnings are not working? And Bush couldn't understand why he gave an ultimatum to Afghanistan, and he said, I'm going to bomb you, I'm warning you. And it might have worked in London, but it did not work in Afghanistan because they have a certain code of conduct. They have a code of honor. And what he was doing was going against that. And if he had truly, truly understood and gone down those levels using one of the techniques which is called the layer, and truly understand that you need to speak to me in my culture, my symbolic way. You mustn't threaten me because you are threatening my honor. And I would rather die than lose my honor. So what did they do? They responded. So it's very much about saying, be careful of looking at just the problem, truly, truly understand the problem in a systemic way and solve it, but solve it with underlying issues as well as the mindsets that are actually creating the problem. So I'm going to end off there, and what I'll do is later I will actually take you into a little bit more depth on exactly what the layers are, but it was really just to set the scene so that everybody could jot down notes while the speakers are speaking.
Thanks, Deborah. Thank you very much. So what we're going to do is, on the side of the room, we have a number of Post-it notes and we have a number of cookies. What we're going to do is kind of hand those cookies and Post-it notes out to you. And whilst we do that, if the people who are sitting on the side, if you want to move into the group, that's also cool. And what we're going to ask you to do is to think about what is the litany that you are seeing. What is it in the media that's currently playing out? What are the messages about this crisis that superficially are the messages that people are paying attention to? And that might be messages that are coming through on social media. It might be messages that are coming through in the press. Wherever it is that people are gaining the information that they use for thinking about this crisis. And then I'd like you to think about the kind of layer 2. What are some of the systemic causes and issues that you believe are also impacting on this that we need to pay attention to? And then the third point, the third level, what are some of the elements around people's assumptions, beliefs, worldviews that may be contributing to the challenge we're experiencing? And then if you're brave enough to go right the way down to level 4, what is it about culture? What is it about the way intergenerational information has been passed through myths, metaphors, stories that creates the unconscious framework and background to people's behavior? And so if you will grab a Post-it note as the speakers are speaking, there probably are going to be things that are going to trigger you off. And then we're going to ask you to come and put those on the boards, and we're going to have a deeper dialogue about that all the way through the day. Sorry, gentleman over there.
Yeah, sorry, this is the intergeneration disconnect. Because if you read my book, published in 1991, on the environment and change in South Africa, if you read my articles published in Science Press, also in 1991, predicting day zero of the millennium, you'll realize that it's all about climate change.
Yeah, exactly.
Is this a skeptic?
I think it's a meeting. There'll be people in this room who are skeptics. There'll be people in this room who are mainstream. I think it's for all voices to be heard and to...
Both articles were trashed by members of the Stellenbosch faculty. It's got something to do with the climate.
Okay, yeah, sure. Look, sorry.
Your name? James Robert Lewis.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
And a quick question,
Yeah.
the format of the next few hours.
Yeah.
Does it continue ascension until 1?
Until 5.
Until 5, or are there breaks?
Yeah, no, there will be a couple of breaks as we go through. Probably around about, it's around about 11 now, probably at about 12 we'll break. Short break.
Will there be coffee available somewhere around here?
Yeah, there's a canteen. Yeah, Great. All right, I'm going to ask Alderman Smith just to quickly have a word and to welcome you from the city of Cape Town, and then we'll go into the formal program. Thank you.
Good morning, people. Goedemorgen. Mooi So I'm about 4 weeks into this crisis. I have a specific function in the city. I've got a range of functions, including safety and social services. So I'm responsible for libraries, recreation and parks, social development, health, events, fire and emergency rescue services, traffic, law enforcement, metro police, the public emergency call center. But the hat I'm wearing now is the disaster management hat. And that is that we were told about 5 weeks ago that we need to move to a stage where we operationalize our day zero planning, and that means that we are getting ready to actually roll out the infrastructure, the components that would lead to water rationing or that would enable water rationing. So I listened with interest when you said that this is a bit of an urban legend that Cape Town is first. In fact, the Singapore Policy Institute, I see, says there have been 130 cities in serious water crisis in the last 5 years. And I think perhaps Cape Town has moved a little bit closer to the brink than some of those. But hopefully we can claw our way out of it, and maybe that will be a lesson to many other cities that are a little bit less serious about the problem than we're being forced to be. And I must say, I still get people who still chant an aggressive climate change denial approach. It's hard to see that in the US administration that everybody from the president down are still aggressive climate change deniers. If you manage facilities in the city, you see the impact of climate change. You see what is being done physically through extreme weather conditions just to our hardware, just to our infrastructure on a daily basis, and the kind of money we're having to spend, what's happening to our sea walls and our facilities and the roofs of structures. And I can reflect it for you in the insurance budget of the city. You don't need to be a climatologist to see it. You can just go analyze the city's insurance budget. That tells you the whole situation. So you're correct that 2 years ago we started at a grim 1.2 billion litres of water a day. We're down to, we were this last week briefly for one day on 505. I think we're now hovering on a weekly average of about 520. So that's good news. And I think the lesson we learned from this is that it takes a crisis to force people to change behavior. We should probably all gradually have been changing for the last few years. You might remember that we've had water restrictions now for 6-7 years. We're on water restrictions. We started this term of office at 3B already. We're on 6B. Not a lot of that changes behavior. There is in fact comparatively little that people change unless they get to crisis levels. That's the lesson I'm taking away from this. And in fact, that much of behavioral change is quite capricious and easily changed. When the national minister says, no, day zero is a hoax, don't worry about it, you can instantly see this slight spike in water consumption. So whilst it is starting to look increasingly unlikely that we'll have a day zero, in fact, we can perhaps almost say, almost certainly not, it's dangerous to go and repeat that in public. Because for many people, the change in their behavior is not about the climate, it is just about personal water security. It's nothing more than that. After this, I'm going out with law enforcement to go watch them do some water blitzes. So sadly for some people, it's business as usual. There is that 10, 20, and apparently in our city about 30% of people who are not going to change behavior, who are still irrigating lawns, washing out wheelie bins, hosing down driveways, washing cars. And that's happening as we speak now this morning. So we're unfortunately, the other hat I wear is also the enforcement hat, and we're having to go do that even as we speak. So we've been moving towards pressure reduction all around. It saves you about 50 million litres a day. The dreaded water demand management devices that eventually everybody will have. I volunteered for one. Most of my colleagues have. As faulty and problematic as some of them are, eventually we'll probably have to move to a situation where everybody has one, and where, quite frankly, you ration at individual user level and you don't punish a whole city for the failure of some to reduce consumption. And then, of course, the city is aggressively trying to get a grip on each water use, so you can come and see the desiccated gardens at our building. You can see the don't rush to flush stickers. We've all learned to be a lot more frugal in our water consumption, and that reflects in our own statistics. The fire department now tries to studiously avoid potable water use. We're not taking water from hydrants. I go out and work with them regularly. I quite enjoy it, and I attended a fire with them in Macassar the other day. We had an extra tanker on scene, and we took the extra minute further to drive to an open water source and draw water from there. We've adapted our tankers to be vacuum tankers so we can draw water from open water sources more quickly. We are using salt water. We are storing water that people surrender. So people will say, well, we no longer need the water in our swimming pool. We'll go and pump the water out. We'll store it in our swimming pools, which sadly mostly are closed. Only 13 of our 38 swimming pools are currently open, and at the moment it's down to 6, and we will probably have to close even a few more of them as the crisis deepens. If that doesn't turn around, we'll convert some of them to salt water, which is happening. The budget is there, but it's much more expensive than I'd hoped. Last year I bragged and said, no, we'll introduce salt water pools. Surely we can pull that off in a year, but it proves to be quite a bit more expensive than we'd hoped. Recreation and Parks is doing everything possible to reuse waters, from introducing little push taps at every single toilet, basin, etc., to prevent people from opening taps. So we're doing what we can. We're driving the augmentation, and you need a proper expert to talk to you about that, but these augmentation schemes, the smallest ones have already started. The rest of them, particularly between March and June, and then the bigger ones towards December this year. But it is the issue of affordability that does drive up cost. The groundwater, which we now deliver at about 4 to 5 rand a kilolitre, gets up to 38 to 53 rand a kilolitre if you start doing this. So the issue is what happens to affordability. If you keep the water cost at the same price and you don't pass that cost on to the consumers or the users, then that cost has to be borne elsewhere in the budget. Something else has to get removed or shrunk or taken away. So I want to say I'm very excited about your hack. I have the particularly challenging problem of tackling an almost unprecedented issue, getting water to 4 million users through rationing every day. We are accustomed to dealing with small little disasters. We have regularly disasters that affect 1,000, 2,000, maybe up to 10,000 people. And we've learned how to deal with these small localized disasters. We can muster resources there, but will our resources manage a citywide disaster annually, daily? I mean, it's effectively 200 World Cups every day, continuously. And I'm not sure how well we're going to cope with that. I'm cautiously optimistic, but the more I work on this, the more challenging I realize it is, and the more fraught with perils and complexity that we didn't anticipate when we were told to start operationalizing. So one of the big challenges, for instance, is vulnerable users. How do you get water to people who are not able to connect themselves? We know the institutional users are. They're familiar to us. They're on databases, the facilities are registered with the city and the provincial social development department. We know how to get to them. What is more difficult is how do you get to the individuals who are homebound or difficulty in collecting. And we have now done the call to action to volunteers. We're inundated with volunteers. I must tell you, that's one thing you can say about Cape Town. When you ask for help, it comes in abundance. And we're still trying to dispense the humanitarian relief materials people donated for the Knysna fire. We still haven't managed to dispense all of that at disaster scenarios. So it is extraordinary how much Cape Town or Cape Townians are willing to do. The challenge now is to identify all of our vulnerable users. We're going to start making call centers available and letting them identify themselves. We're getting social workers, our Women for Change program in council rental areas, etc., to start identifying these individuals. But there's no easy way to do it. And if you have creative solutions for this, we're all ears, and then we have to match those volunteers against those individuals. So I'm sure you'll come up with a lot of good ideas around how we can do this, and better and more affordable augmentation and reuse. But maybe I can set you a particular challenge. One of the issues around the water collection points, if we get into that grim scenario, is managing queues and getting 15,000 people through an average water collection point. So those are big points with about 600 to 800 taps. Richard Bosman tomorrow will give you more detail about the detailed design of how this works. You can find us creative hacks for how we monitor queue length and let residents know about how long a queue is on a place where they can readily identify that on the internet or somewhere else, and they can collect at the quickest and least congested point. That will help a lot. If you're able to help us develop a backup plan for our light touch regulation. At the moment, the approach is, and we've spoken to international aid agencies about this, is light touch regulation, so nobody pays, no form of identification or accreditation at collection points, and essentially an honor system with people collecting for themselves or for their families up to 100 litres for themselves and 3 other family members. So we're hoping that this will work, and the argument is that the extra effort you take with regulation is not worth the hassles. It slows down queues, it's room for conflict, but we're also told that under certain circumstances in some communities the light touch regulation won't work, and that you might come unstuck, and the conflict between people accusing each other of collecting double, etc., is in itself a generator of problems. So we are starting to think of what is the backup, what is the easiest way to allow people confidence that everybody is getting a fair share of water. And if you have better ideas than us about this, keeping in mind that many people can't produce a rates account or an identity document, etc., and that you can't necessarily rely on those. And we have to do all of this while still keeping our economy going and keeping things moving, because we can't create a disaster within a disaster and have sections of your economy slow down and people not being able to draw paychecks and not being able to be employed. So we're approaching this, Ian, and saying, for us, it's not about necessarily day zero anymore. We might well survive a day zero. If we survive a day zero, the planning and the effort we're putting in now is for the next crisis that faces. The other thing that blindsides us 5 years or 10 years down the road, the lessons we learn from this, the partnerships we build with neighborhood watchers, community organizations, NGOs, etc., those will stand us in good stead a few years down the road when something else catches us by surprise, and we need to have an improved operation and partnership. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, what we